Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining me today. Look, if you're gearing up for the Praxis exam, you already know the reading comprehension section can feel, well, a bit like a daunting mountain to climb. But we're going to conquer that mountain today. We're going to completely master the absolute foundational skills you need, identifying main ideas and supporting details. So let's jump right in. Okay, I want you to ask yourself a super honest question right now. Can you quickly find the main idea in a passage? Like, really quickly? Because if the answer is no, or if it just takes a little too long, you're going to run into some serious roadblocks on the Praxis. The time pressure is no joke, and the text can get really dense. But hey, don't sweat it. That is exactly what we're going to fix right now. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the Praxis Reading Challenge. Then, message versus support. Next, a practical example, followed by finding the main idea, dodging Praxis exam traps, and finally, our summary and next steps.
Okay, let's dive straight into Section 1, the Praxis Reading Challenge.
Moving right along to Section 2, message versus support. All right, before we can tackle those massive, intimidating passages, we have to define exactly what it is we're actually looking for. So, the main idea. This is simply the most important point of a passage. I really want to emphasize that. The most important point. It is the absolute center of the author's overarching goal. Literally everything else in the text is just there to serve that one main point. Now contrast that overarching goal with supporting details. These are the facts or the examples that explain the main idea. Think of it kind of like the pillars holding up a roof. The roof itself, that's your main idea. But those pillars holding it up, those are your supporting details. They act purely as specific evidence to reinforce that big primary point we just talked about.
This really brilliantly illustrates that fundamental contrast you need to keep in mind. On one side, the main idea is your core message. On the other side, the details are purely the support for that message. If you can train your brain to clearly separate the message from the support while you read, your comprehension speed is going to absolutely skyrocket.
Let's put this into practice with Section 3, a practical example. Check out this sentence, dogs are great pets because they are loyal, friendly, and protective. Okay, before we reveal the breakdown, I want you to mentally act as a reading detective for a second. Based on what we just defined, what's the core message here? And what is just the evidence? Give it a quick thought. So notice how neatly this whole thing breaks down. The main idea is just this. Dogs are great pets. That's the big takeaway, right? Then the supporting details, loyal, friendly, protective, are those narrow, specific pieces of evidence propping up that overarching main idea. They're just explaining why dogs are great pets. See how perfectly that separates out? All right, on to Section 4, finding the main idea. Let's pivot to the actual active reading strategy you're going to need. Whenever you're tackling a passage for the Praxis, I want you to constantly ask yourself this one simple question. What is this passage mostly about? Make this your default habit. Seriously, by actively asking yourself this as you read, you literally force your brain to look right past all those minor specifics and pinpoint the dominant theme. And you should add this second crucial question to your internal monologue too. What is the author trying to say? You know, sometimes the main idea isn't just handed to you in one neat little sentence. Sometimes you have to synthesize it yourself. So asking what the author is ultimately trying to communicate forces you to focus strictly on that big message, effectively filtering out all the extra background noise. Now we're getting to the really good stuff. Section 5, dodging Praxis exam traps. Let's raise the stakes a bit because understanding how the exam actually tests you on this is really the other half of the battle. The Praxis test makers will typically ask you to demonstrate your reading comprehension in two direct ways. They might just ask you plainly, what is the main idea? Or they might flip the script and ask, which sentence supports the main idea? This is why knowing exactly what you're looking for, the big message versus the narrow support, is absolutely vital here. Here is where you have to be super careful. When you get a main idea question, you must focus entirely on the big idea. Incorrect exam answers, they are carefully designed traps. They're going to try to distract you by highlighting small details and narrow facts. And here's the kicker. Those narrow facts might be entirely true and actually appear right there in the text. That's what makes them so insanely tricky. But remember, a narrow fact is just a supporting detail. It's not the big, overarching idea. Please, whatever you do, do not take the bait. Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, Summary and Next Steps. I want to reiterate this ultimate foundational summary just one more time for your quick mental structuring. Really burn this into your memory. Left side, main idea equals the big message. Right side, supporting details equal the explanation. Whenever you feel yourself getting lost in some incredibly dense passage, just take a breath and return to this basic systematic breakdown. Honestly, it's a total game changer. It'll guide you straight to the right answer every single time. You now have the active reading mindset you need to effortlessly spot the difference between a core message and its underlying components. So the next time you sit down with a practice passage, I want you to immediately hunt for that core message and actively filter out those sneaky, narrow details designed to trip you up. You are absolutely capable of mastering this. So as you crack open your next practice test, I have to ask, will you fall for the narrow facts trap? Or will you successfully hunt down that big message? For more simple daily exam prep lessons exactly like this one, make sure to subscribe to Praxis Prep Academy. Keep learning, keep your eyes on the big picture, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.